Rare coin collecting. Discover real value and history in every coin.
Have you ever picked up a simple, brown Lincoln penny, the kind you find under your couch, in an old drawer, or at the bottom of a jar, and wondered if that tiny coin could change your life? What if I told you that hidden among those ordinary cents are a few pieces so rare, so mysterious that they've sold for the price of a brand new car, or even a small house? Yes, we're talking about 10 Lincoln pennies that look just like every other 1-cent coin in your pocket. But behind their worn copper faces hide jaw-dropping values. Some are worth hundreds, others thousands, and a few have crossed into six-figure territory, all because of microscopic details, minting errors, or a twist of American history that no one saw coming. These pennies weren't made of gold or silver. They weren't struck to be treasures. They were made to be spent, lost, forgotten. But somehow, fate and the US Mint conspired to turn a handful of them into legends, and right now, one of those legends could be sitting in your coin jar, waiting for you to notice. Each of these 10 coins tells a different story. Some were born out of wartime shortages, when America struggled to find the right metal to keep its economy running. Others came from minting mistakes so small that the naked eye can barely detect them, and yet, collectors have paid tens of thousands just to own one. Then there are the coins whose mystery isn't about an error at all, but about what's missing. A tiny mint mark, a number, a letter, gone, erased by accident or design, transforming a regular penny into a priceless enigma. Over the years, these coins have been at the center of bidding wars, treasure hunts, and family discoveries that made headlines. One lucky person might find one, stuck inside an old album inherited from a grandparent. Another might dig one up in a parking lot or pull it from circulation without realizing they're holding a miniature fortune. But here's the thing, the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth 10,000 isn't luck alone. It's knowledge, knowing what to look for, the shape of a mint mark, the sharpness of Lincoln's vest, a doubled number on the date, or even the color of the copper, can turn an average collector into a hidden treasure hunter. And that's why, in this video, we're diving deep into the 10 Lincoln pennies that have made history, coins that have stunned collectors, broken records, and rewritten what a simple cent can be worth. You'll learn how they were created, what went wrong or right, and most importantly, how to spot one if it's hiding in your own collection. But before we reveal the dates, I want you to do something. Take a moment and imagine that handful of pennies sitting somewhere near you. So stay with me, because what's coming next might just make you open every penny jar you've ever ignored. You're about to see how the humblest coin in America's history turned into one of its greatest hidden treasures. What if I told you that a single Lincoln penny from 1937, a coin that looks completely ordinary, could be worth up to $60,000 today? Yes, one of these small brown coins, the same type people often ignore in their drawers or jars, has reached shocking 5-figure prices at auctions. The reason? A blend of minting perfection, human error, and nearly 90 years of history sealed into copper. Before we dive deeper, if you're passionate about discovering hidden treasures like this, make sure you subscribe to Hidden Gold Hunter and help us uncover the secret stories behind the coins in your pocket. Now, let's unlock the mystery of the 1937 Lincoln wheat penny. The year 1937 sat right on the edge of recovery from the Great Depression. The nation was rebuilding hope, jobs were returning, and the US Mint was striking coins that symbolized resilience and unity. The Lincoln penny, designed by Victor David Brenner, carried Abraham Lincoln's face as a reminder of strength during hard times. 3 mints produced the 1937 penny. Philadelphia, no mint mark. Denver, D. San Francisco, SE. Altogether, more than 309 million pennies were minted. So it's easy to think they're all common. But not every 1937 penny is ordinary. Some are masterpieces of condition. Others, fascinating mint errors that slipped into circulation unnoticed. Let's start with value. In circulated condition, a 1937 penny might bring 5 to 15 cents. Nothing exciting, but when preserved in pristine mint red brilliance, that's when things change. A 1937p, graded MS-67, Red is sold for $7,500. The Denver Mint version, 1937D, in MS-68 red crossed $17,000. And the real showstopper, a 1937 S-graded MS-68, red, once brought a staggering $60,000 at a major auction, making it one of the most valuable wheat pennies of the late 1930s. Why so much? Because such flawless coins are unbelievably rare. The mint used softer bronze planchets, which picked up marks easily. After decades in circulation, nearly every 1937 penny you'll find has scratches, dulling or discoloration. But those few untouched, glowing copper examples, they're the true treasures. Now let's talk errors and varieties, the heartbeat of coin collectors. The most famous is the 1937 doubled die obverse. When the die used to strike the coins shifted slightly between impressions, the date and lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust, appear doubled. These doubled die coins are collector magnets, often selling from $500 to $5,000, depending on how strong the doubling appears. Another exciting variety is the 1937D RPM repunched mint mark. During die preparation, the D mint mark was hand-punched more than once, creating a visible shadow or doubling effect. Clear RPMs can fetch $100 to $500, sometimes even more in high grades. And don't forget off-center strikes, die cracks, or lamination errors. All those little accidents that make each coin unique. A dramatic off-center strike, where part of the design is missing, can reach $200 to $1,000, depending on how striking it looks. Now let's add some context. Each 1937 penny was made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, a warm bronze blend that aged beautifully, but also oxidized easily. Over decades, they developed deep brown tones or spots. Collectors sort them into color grades: brown, BN, red-brown, RB, and full red, RD. The red coins, untouched by air or moisture, are the rarest and most valuable. Think of it like this: every brilliant red penny that survives today is a tiny time capsule from pre-war America, kept safe through nearly 9 decades of change. So how do you know if your 1937 penny might be valuable? Here's a quick checklist. Check the mint mark. Is it a D or S? Those are more promising. Examine the date and liberty under magnification. Any doubling? Look at the color. Bright red means premium value. Inspect the strike. Sharp details on Lincoln's beard and wheat lines are key, indicators of a high-grade coin. And here's a golden rule. Never clean your penny. Cleaning destroys the surface and slashes collector value. Leave the natural tone. Experts prefer it that way. The 1937 Lincoln penny might not be silver or gold, but its story is priceless. It's a survivor of the Depression era, a silent witness to America's comeback, and proof that even the smallest, simplest things can hold hidden fortune. So next time you see an old penny, don't ignore it. That little coin could be history, and maybe your hidden gold. Did you know that a simple 1957 Lincoln penny, the same one, you might find rolling around in a drawer, under your car seat, or inside an old jar, could be worth up to $4,600 or even more? That's right. What was once a humble 1-cent coin can now be a hidden treasure, if you know exactly what to look for. Let's dig into the mystery, the history, and the powerful value behind this classic American coin, the 1957 wheat penny. The story begins in a fascinating time for US coinage. The year was 1957, and America was booming after World War II. The country was thriving with optimism, technology, and production. The Lincoln wheat penny, already a national icon since 1909, was still being minted. But this was one of the final 2 years before the US Mint would permanently change its design to the Lincoln Memorial, reverse in 1959. So in many ways, the 1957 penny stands as a farewell to an era, the end of the beloved wheat design that collectors had cherished for nearly half a century. Now there are 2 main varieties of the 1957 penny: the one struck in Philadelphia, no mint mark, and the 1957D, struck at the Denver Mint. Both were produced in enormous numbers, over 282 million in Philadelphia and 1 billion in Denver. That means billions of these coins once filled pockets. piggy banks and cash registers across America. But here's where the magic happens. Among those billions, a few coins came out so flawlessly struck, perfectly preserved, or mistakenly minted that they became worth far more than anyone could imagine. Let's start with the basic value. A normal 1957 penny, in worn circulated condition, is worth about 3 to 10 cents, mostly for its age and the wheatback nostalgia. But if you find one that's still bright, with full luster, sharp details, and no scratches, things start to change quickly. Uncirculated 1957, pennies graded MS65 by PCGS or NGC, can bring $10 to $25 easily. But when you step into the top condition, MS67 red, you're talking serious collector money. One stunning 1957 Lincoln Cent graded MS67RD sold for over $2,500, and some examples with perfect color and strike. Quality have reached auction records of over $4,600. And that's just for condition. The real fun begins when we talk about errors and varieties. The US Mint in the 1950s was producing coins at incredible speeds, and even with all that precision, mistakes slipped through. For 1957, some of those mistakes turned ordinary coins into rare collectibles. One of the most famous is the 1957 double die obverse. On these coins, you can see slight doubling on the date, 1957, or the letters Liberty and In God We Trust. It's subtle, but once you notice it, you'll never forget it. Depending on the strength of the doubling and the condition, these can range from $75 to over $1,000. Another valuable mistake involves repunched mint marks, RPMs, mostly on 1957 D coins. During that era, mint marks were still hand-punched onto the dies, meaning human error was common. If the worker accidentally hit the punch twice, even slightly off, it left a shadow D, and collectors go crazy for that. A strong RPM can fetch anywhere from $50 to $500, depending on the visibility and grade. Now let's talk about something collectors love: color and eye appeal. Lincoln Cents are made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, and over the decades they tone beautifully. Some develop deep red, orange, or even rainbow hues. These natural colors can make a coin stand out at auctions, and sometimes that stunning toning can increase a coin's value by hundreds of dollars. The condition grading system, from brown to red-brown to red, plays a huge role in determining price. A 1957D penny in red-brown condition might bring $15 to $30, but that same coin in full fiery red can sell for 10 times more. So how do you know if your 1957 penny is special? Start with these simple steps. 1. Check the mint mark. If there's a D under the date, it's from Denver. If not, it's from Philadelphia. 2. Look for doubling on the numbers and letters. 3. Examine the D closely. A repunched or distorted D could mean big money. 4. Observe the color. Bright red tones are the most desirable. 5. Use a magnifier. Some errors are nearly invisible to the naked eye. And here's a tip few collectors share. The best places to find 1957 wheat pennies aren't just in coin shops. Check old jars, vintage piggy banks, family collections, or even inherited albums. People often keep these coins without knowing their hidden value. The 1957 penny might not look rare at first glance. But like so many legends in the Lincoln series, its story is about what time, condition, and chance can create. It's a reminder that sometimes the most common things can hide uncommon worth. Before we wrap up, let's talk about why this matters. The 1957 Lincoln penny marks the last breath of the wheat design, a link to the past that will never return. It carries the image of Lincoln on the front and the twin wheat stalks on the back, a design that once represented hard work, unity, and the American dream. So, whether your 1957 penny is worth a cent or a small fortune, it's still a piece of that story, a slice of history in your hands. And if you want to uncover more hidden treasures like this, remember to support our struggle by subscribing to Hidden Gold Hunter. It keeps this mission alive, to bring history, mystery, and discovery right to you. Who knows? Your next penny might not just tell a story, it might change your story. Can you imagine holding a 1-cent coin that could be worth up to $125,000? That's right, a small, copper-colored Lincoln penny from 1946. something most people wouldn't think twice about, could actually hide a fortune. So, before you toss that old penny aside, let's uncover the powerful story, secret minting mistakes, and hidden value behind the 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny, one of America's most underestimated coins. The year 1946 was a turning point for the United States Mint. World War II had just ended. The nation was rebuilding, and for the first time in years, the Mint returned to using pure copper and tin alloy. After experimenting with steel during the war, the 1946 penny symbolized peace, prosperity, and the country's return to normal life. But here's where it gets fascinating. Those pennies, struck from leftover wartime materials and new copper rolls, have produced some of the most controversial minting varieties of the post-war years. 3 mints struck the 1946 penny: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D; and San Francisco, S. The total mintage was enormous, over 1.4 billion coins. So why would a coin produced in the billions be worth thousands today? Because not all 1946 pennies are the same. Let's start with the basics. In average worn condition, a 1946 penny is worth just a few cents, maybe 5 to 10 cents for its collectible nostalgia. But when we shift from circulation finds to high-grade, well-preserved examples, the story changes dramatically. A 1946 penny graded MS67 red, the brightest, cleanest version with full mint color, can easily bring $1,500 to $3,000 at auction. At MS68 red, which is almost perfection, prices have reached over $15,000. And here's the jaw-dropper. She 1940-60 in the ultimate MS68 red condition, perfectly struck and blazing with color, once sold for a record $125,000, making it one of the most valuable post-war pennies ever found. But what makes a 1946 penny go from common to incredible isn't just condition, it's eras and varieties. One of the most dramatic is the 1946 DS over mint mark variety. During the die-making process, a San Francisco S mint mark was accidentally punched first, then later a Denver D was stamped over it. Under magnification, you can see both letters overlapping, a genuine, minting blunder that collectors go wild for. Depending on clarity and grade, this variety can range from $150 to over $2,500. Another error to look for is the double die obverse, where the date or the letters, Liberty and In God We Trust, appear doubled because of a misalignment during die creation. Strong examples are rare but highly prized, often bringing hundreds to thousands. And let's not forget off-center strikes or planche clips, where the coin wasn't properly aligned during striking or part of the metal blank was missing. Even minor misstrikes can earn $50 to $200, while dramatic ones soar into the $1,000 range. Now, what truly separates a high-value 1946 penny from an ordinary one is its color and surface preservation. Collectors use 3 color grades: brown, BN, red-brown, RB, and red, RD. A 1946 penny that retains 100% of its original red luster, the bright, fiery copper tone fresh from the mint, is incredibly scarce. These coins have been stored for nearly 80 years without tarnishing, and that's what pushes values into the 5- and 6-figure range. So how can you tell if you have a winner? Start by inspecting the mint. Mark under magnification. Look closely for that DS overlap. Check the date and lettering for any doubling. Flip the coin to see if the rim is centered and round. Finally, look at the color. The redder and shinier, the better. Now let's talk about where you can actually find these coins. They often appear in old coffee cans, inherited jars, estate boxes, and forgotten dresses. Many families saved wheat pennies without realizing their potential value. Some of the most valuable 1946 pennies ever found came from simple household collections, passed down through generations. When you find one, don't rush to clean it. Cleaning destroys collector value. Instead, store it safely in a protective holder and have it graded by PCGS or NGC if it looks exceptional. The 1946 Lincoln penny is not just a small copper coin. It's a symbol of recovery, craftsmanship, and chance. A relic from a nation healing after war, and proof that even the most ordinary-looking coin can hide extraordinary worth. If this is your first coin of the day, then remember, every discovery fuels our mission. Support our struggle by subscribing to Hidden Gold Hunter, because together we reveal the hidden stories and forgotten fortunes buried in America's change. Your next penny might not just tell history, it might make history. What if I told you that a simple 1950 Lincoln wheat penny, one that looks like pocket change from your grandpa's jar, could be worth up to $20,000 today? Yes, a single 1-cent coin from the early 1950s, something most people would never even glance at twice, has shocked collectors with its value at top auctions. And the reasons why might surprise you, because it's not just about age or rarity, but tiny imperfections, sharp details, and the fascinating story of how America was rebuilding after war. Before we dig deeper into the 1950 penny secrets, make sure to subscribe to Hidden Gold Hunter. Join our treasure hunting family and help us uncover the hidden wealth lying quietly inside old coins and forgotten collections. Now, let's uncover what makes this 1-cent piece such a powerful piece of American history. The 1950 Lincoln wheat penny was born in a moment of peace and optimism. World War II had ended just a few years earlier, and the US economy was booming. People were buying homes, cars, and televisions. But no one was paying attention to the little copper coins that passed through their hands daily. Yet those very coins, including the 1950 penny, would become a hidden legacy of that post-war prosperity. The coin was produced in 3 mints: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D; San Francisco, SE. Altogether, the mint produced over 1.6 billion pennies that year. So yes, it sounds common. But here's the twist. Condition, strike quality, and small minting errors completely change the value. In average circulated condition, a 1950 penny might only be worth a few cents. But if you find one that has been preserved perfectly, no scratches, full red luster and sharp details, it can skyrocket. A 1950p in MS67 red sold for over $7,000. A 1950D graded MS67 red brought $9,500. And the rare 1950S in pristine MS67 red once shocked the collecting world by selling for nearly $20,000 at auction. That's $20,000 for a coin that was worth a penny when Harry Truman was president. So how did this happen? In 1950, the US Mint was operating with older dies, and that led to weakly struck coins. Many pennies from that year have blurry details, especially around Lincoln's hair and beard or the wheat lines on the reverse. Only a handful of coins were struck perfectly and then somehow survived the years without damage, untouched by circulation. That combination, a strong strike and immaculate surface, is why the top-grade red coins are so rare and expensive. Collectors love those with bright, original red luster, meaning the coin hasn't oxidized or toned brown over the decades. That natural shine is a visual time capsule from 1950, pure, untouched, and glowing with the color of freshly minted bronze. Now let's talk about what really gets collectors excited: errors and varieties. There are a few major 1950 penny errors worth watching for. 1. 1950 D over D, DD, repunched mint mark. When the Denver Mint hand-punched its mint marks, sometimes the punch wasn't perfect, and the D had to be struck again. The result? A repunched mint mark, where you can see a shadow of the first D under or beside the second. These can sell from $100 to $1,000 plus, depending on visibility and grade. 2. Double die obverse, DDO. Look at the date, especially the 5 and 0 or at Liberty. If they appear doubled, you've found one of the most desirable varieties. Depending on clarity, this could mean anywhere from $200 to $3,000. 3. Off-center strikes and die cracks. Off-center strikes, where the design is visibly shifted, or cracks in the die that left raised lines on the coin, can bring anywhere from $50 to $500, based on how dramatic they look. 4. Bie error. Between the letters B and E in Liberty, you might find a raised line that looks like an I. This happened when the die cracked in that area. BIE errors are collectible and can go from $59 to $100. By 1950, the US Mint had already been striking the Lincoln, designed for over 40 years and since 1909. But the wheat reverse, showing the 2 wheat ears, was nearing its end. Just 9 years later, it would be replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design in 1959. So, every 1950 penny is part of the final decade of the beloved wheat cent era. Collectors often describe these years, the 1950s, wheat cents, as the golden bridge between old American craftsmanship in the modern minting era. The coins were still struck with traditional methods, and you can feel that heritage in every tiny detail. Think about it. Every time you hold a 1950 penny, you're touching a coin that passed through the hands of people living in a totally different America, before the civil rights movement, before the moon landing, before the internet. And yet, it's still here, carrying all that silent history in 1 gram of copper. How to check your penny. So how can you tell if your 1950 penny could be worth thousands? Step 1. Look under the date for a mint mark. D means Denver, S means San Francisco. Step 2. Check color. Full red means high potential value. Step 3. Look for mint errors, doubled letters, repunched mint marks or cracks. Step 4. Never clean the coin. Cleaning instantly destroys collective value. If your penny looks shiny and untouched, especially one with sharp lines on Lincoln's coat, beard, and the wheat stalks, it's worth getting graded by PCGS or NGC. The 1950 Lincoln wheat penny may look like a common copper coin, but it's actually a hidden treasure of American minting history. Its value depends not just on rarity, but on the perfect storm of mint quality, condition, and error variety. So the next time you come across a handful of old pennies, don't ignore them. That one coin could hold the story of post-war America, and maybe a small fortune waiting to be found. What if I told you that one of the most common-looking pennies in American history, the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny, has shocked collectors by selling for over $400,000 at auction? Yes, a 1-cent coin that millions of people carried during World War II could actually make you richer than gold, all because of one small minting mistake and a story born in the heart of wartime America. Before we reveal how this happened and what secret details to look for, make sure to subscribe to Hidden Gold Hunter and join our journey of uncovering forgotten treasures, hiding inside ordinary coins. Your support keeps the hunt alive. The year was 1944. America was deep in the final years of World War II. Copper was desperately needed for ammunition, shell casings, and wiring for military equipment. To conserve metal, the US Mint had struck pennies in steel the year before, in 1943, giving them a silvery color. But in 1944, things changed again. The Mint switched back to copper alloy pennies, made mostly from recycled spent shell casings gathered from military training grounds. These 1944 pennies are literally made from the remnants of war, melted bullet shells turned into money for peace. That's why collectors often call it the shell casing cent. But something unexpected happened during that switch, and it created one of the most valuable era coins in US history. When the Mint transitioned back to copper in 1944, a few leftover steel planchets from 1943 accidentally remained in the machines. Those rare few were struck with 1944 dies, creating the ultra-famous 1944 steel penny. Visually, these coins look silver or grey, not brown or red like normal copper cents. They also stick to a magnet. That's the giveaway. Only a handful of these 1944 steel pennies exist, and depending on the mint mark, they've reached staggering prices. The 1944 steel penny from Philadelphia has sold for up to $180. The 1944 D from Denver has fetched up to $115,000, and the rarest of them all, the 1944 S from San Francisco, once sold for more than $400,000 at auction. $400,000 for a 1-cent coin that looks silver instead of copper. Now, most 1944 pennies you'll find are the normal copper bronze type, but don't dismiss them. Their value still depends on condition, color, and mint mark. The 1944 with no mint mark from Philadelphia is common, but in the highest grade, it can bring over $400. The 1944 D from Denver can hit over $1,000 if the strike is sharp and color is bright red. The 1944 S from San Francisco is scarcer in perfect condition and can go for $2,000 or more. So even without errors, a bright red high-grade 1944 penny can pay far more than its face value, sometimes enough to buy gold. Now here's what you should look for. A genuine 1944 copper penny will appear reddish-brown or golden, while a steel version will be silvery and magnetic. Check the mint mark below the date. If it's missing, it's from Philadelphia. If it has a D, it's Denver. And if it has an S, it's San Francisco. Look closely at the words Liberty and In God We Trust for any doubling, which can mean hundreds to thousands of dollars. Some Denver and San Francisco coins also have repunched mint marks, where you can see a shadow of another D or S. Those are worth $50 to $500, depending on how clear the doubling is. But the biggest test is simple. Use a magnet. If your 1944 penny sticks to it, stop everything. You might be holding one of the rare steel versions. Don't clean it, don't polish it. Just get it authenticated by PCGS or NGC immediately. The magic of the 1944 penny isn't just its error, it's the history. These coins bridge two worlds, the war front and the home front. They carry the story of America's shift from survival to rebuilding. Imagine a coin made from recycled bullets, struck while soldiers were returning from war. That's not just metal, that's memory. And when you add a minting mistake into that emotional history, you get one of the most powerful, collectible coins ever made. Collectors aren't just buying the rarity, they're buying the story of resilience, transition, and American pride. If you think you have a 1944 penny that could be special, never clean it. Cleaning removes the surface and kills collector value. Store it in a coin holder and handle it by the edges only. Then get it graded, especially if it looks silvery or is in excellent condition. Certified coins with labels like MS67 Red or Error, struck on steel planche, bring the highest prices. Collectors, dealers, and auction houses are constantly hunting for verified examples. So even a small find can change everything. The 1944 Lincoln Wheat penny isn't just a coin, it's a piece of American legacy. It tells the story of wartime innovation, minting precision, and human error all at once, and it reminds us that value often hides in plain sight. So next time you're going through a box of old coins or cleaning out a drawer, keep your magnet handy, because that little brown or silvery penny could be your ticket to an incredible discovery, and maybe even a small fortune. Because here at Hidden Gold Hunter, we believe every coin has a story, and some stories are worth a lot more than a cent. The 1956 Lincoln penny might look like just another old cent, but some of these coins have shocked collectors by selling for over $20,000. Yes, a single penny fetching that much. The reason: tiny details that most people miss, hidden minting errors, and pristine conditions that transform an ordinary coin into a rare treasure. The 1956 penny was struck at a time when the US Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents, over 1.6 billion from Philadelphia alone, so naturally, most are worth just face value. But among those billions, a few were struck with such precision or such rare mistakes that they became collector legends. First, condition plays a huge role. A standard, circulated 1956 penny might only be worth 2 to 5 cents. But if it's in mint state, untouched, shiny red copper with no scratches, the value can climb quickly. At Team TC, MS67 Red Lincoln penny, graded by PCGS or NGC, can bring $300 to $600, and at the very top, a flawless MS67 Plus Red has been auctioned for thousands. Now here's where the real magic happens: mint errors. Some 1956 pennies have double dies, meaning the letters or date were struck twice by accident, creating a shadow-like doubling. The most famous is the 1956 double die obverse, where Liberty or In God We Trust appear doubled. These errors are rare, and when found in high grade, they can sell for several $1,000s. Another fascinating variant comes from the Denver Mint, the 1956 D penny, which sometimes shows a repunched mint mark, RPM. That's when the D was punched more than once, slightly off position each time, creating a ghost-like outline around the mint mark. Collectors love these, and while most sell for $2,100, a sharp and clean example in mint red condition can fetch several $100s. There's also the hunt for proof-like strikes, those unusually reflective coins that were never official proofs but look like them. These are extremely scarce for 1956 and often bring premium prices because they display that rare, mirror-like finish. So if you come across a 1956 Lincoln penny, don't just glance at it. Check for doubling, inspect the mint mark carefully, and see how bright that copper glow is. That ordinary-looking coin from your grandparents' jar could be one of the few gems worth thousands of dollars, hiding right in plain sight. The 1953 D Lincoln penny might look like just another copper coin in your change jar, but some of these have sold for jaw-dropping prices. Coins that cost just 1 cent when minted are now worth up to 7,000, and a few pristine examples with rare errors have crossed $10,000 at auction. So, before you think this old wheat penny is just pocket change, listen carefully, because you could be holding a tiny piece of American history that's far rarer than most collectors ever realize. Now, here's what makes the 1953D penny so fascinating. It was minted in Denver, Colorado, marked by the small letter D below the date on the front of the coin, and it was part of the post-war wheat penny series that captured the heart of an entire generation. More than 700 million of these pennies were produced, which might make you think they're all common. But the truth is, among those hundreds of millions, only a handful were struck with perfection, and an even smaller number contain hidden errors that make them numismatic treasures. That's where the story begins. At first glance, a 1953D penny looks simple. Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, 2 wheat stalks on the reverse, and that deep copper-red shine that the US Mint used in its bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. But the real magic is hidden in the small details. When you look closely under magnification, this year produced several famous and extremely rare error varieties. Some of these errors came from mechanical issues during the minting process, tiny imperfections that the mint workers didn't notice, but collectors today pay thousands to find. The most talked about error for the 1953D penny is the repunched mint mark, or RPM. During that era, mint marks were hand-punched into each working die, which means human error was always possible. On some coins, the Denver D was struck twice, slightly off the original position. These repunched D over D varieties can be spotted by a faint shadow or doubling around the mint mark. And if you find one in high mint state condition, especially with a bright red luster and no signs of wear, it could be worth anywhere between $500 to $2,000, depending on its clarity and grade. But that's not all. A few 1953D pennies show what collectors call a double die or verse, where parts of the date or lettering, especially the word liberty or in God we trust, appear slightly doubled due to a misalignment when the die was created. Genuine double dies are exceptionally rare for this year. But if you spot one, even a faint example, you could be looking at a coin that collectors would fight over, potentially fetching $5,000, or more in a top-grade slab from PCGS or NGC. The value of this penny also depends heavily on condition, and that's where things get exciting. Most circulated 1953D pennies are worth only a few cents, maybe up to $1 if they're in better shape. But the moment you cross into the higher grading levels, like MS65 Red or MS67 Red, the prices skyrocket. The reason? Color and stripe quality. A coin that has retained its full, blazing copper red color after 70 years is incredibly rare. Many pennies of that era turned brown or developed spots due to oxidation. So a bright red example is almost like time travel, exactly how it looked the day it left the mint. In 2021, one such MS67 Red 1953D penny sold for just over $7,475, and it wasn't even the only one near that range. These flawless examples are the crown jewels of Lincoln wheat collectors. Beyond the errors and grades, the story behind this coin adds to its charm. 1953 was a time of American recovery. The Korean War was winding down. The US economy was booming, and the Denver Mint was running around the clock to meet demand for coinage. These pennies circulated in the pockets of soldiers, factory workers, and schoolchildren across the country. To hold one today is to hold a physical piece of mid-century America, a silent witness to a generation's progress, triumph, and change. And yet, even in that massive run, the mint's precision wasn't perfect. Dies wore out quickly, and replacements weren't always perfectly aligned, leading to subtle variations and weak strikes that now make each surviving, high-quality coin that much more valuable. Now let's talk about lamination errors and die cracks, two lesser-known types that can add serious interest. A lamination error happens when impurities in the metal cause part of the copper surface to peel or flake away. These look like tiny cracks or missing layers. On the surface of the coin, And while not all are valuable, dramatic or clean examples can bring collectors hundreds of dollars. Die cracks, on the other hand, are thin raised lines across the coin's surface, caused when the mint steel dies began to fracture from overuse. A bold die crack running through Lincoln's face or across the wheat stalks can turn an ordinary cent into a showpiece, especially if it's visible without magnification. You might wonder, how can such small details matter so much? The answer lies in supply and demand. Millions of people collect Lincoln wheat cents, but only a few thousand of the finest. 53D. Examples exist in pristine condition, and among those, only a few dozen might have a rare error. That's why collectors pay such incredible premiums, because rarity, condition, and history collide in one copper coin barely bigger than your fingertip. So, what should you do if you find one? First, examine it under good lighting, and maybe even a magnifying glass. Look for that small D under the date, see if there's any doubling. Then check the overall color. Is it bright red, reddish brown, or dull brown? The redder the better. If you think it's uncirculated, meaning no scratches, wear or dullness, it's worth getting graded. A professional grading service can confirm whether you have a gem quality penny or a rare error, and the difference could be thousands of dollars. Every coin tells a story, but few do it like the 1953D penny. It represents a turning point between the old world craftsmanship of hand-punched dies and the coming era of industrial precision. It's both a relic of imperfection and a masterpiece of survival. And for collectors today, it's a reminder that even the smallest piece of copper can carry immense historical and financial weight. So before you spend that penny or toss it aside, remember your 1953D Lincoln cent might not just be 1 cent. It might be a forgotten fortune, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows where to look. The 1942 Lincoln penny looks like a simple copper coin, something you could easily overlook in an old jar or a box of change. But what if I told you that this little penny, struck during the early days of World War II, could be worth as much as $14,000 in rare cases? Yes, a coin that cost just 1 cent to make has turned into a collector's treasure that can pay for a month's rent, a used car, or even a piece of gold. And the reason isn't just its age, it's the story behind it, the minting errors and the perfection that survived against all odds. The year 1942 was one of the most turbulent times in American history. The nation was deep in World War II, and every ounce of copper was precious for military production. It was used for bullets, shell casings, and wiring. So every copper penny minted that year carried a hidden weight of history. It wasn't just a coin, it was a symbol of sacrifice, economy, and a nation under pressure. The US Mint in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco was working day and night, producing over 950 million pennies. But what makes some of these coins so valuable is not how many were made. It's the few that stand out due to perfection or mistakes. Let's start with the metal itself. The 1942 penny was still made of the classic bronze. Composition, 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc. But the country's supply of copper was running low, and the mint was already testing alternative metals for the next year's pennies. That's why 1942 became the final full year of copper pennies before the famous 1943 steel cents. This transition makes the 1942 penny historically significant. It was the end of an era, the last of the classic copper war. Cents before change swept through American coinage. Now here's where things get interesting. Most 1942 pennies are common, worth just a few cents to $1 in circulated condition. But when you find one in mint state, especially with that fiery red luster, still glowing after more than 80 years, its value can climb dramatically. A perfect 1942 penny graded MS-67 red has sold for more than $7,000, and a 1942S in the same flawless grade has broken $12,000 at auction. These are coins that never circulated. that somehow avoided scratches, fingerprints, and oxidation. They were likely tucked away by collectors the moment they were minted, preserving them as time capsules of the early 1940s. But it's not just condition that makes these pennies valuable. The 1942 series also includes some fascinating minting errors, small mistakes that can turn an ordinary coin into a rarity worth thousands. One of the most famous is the doubled die obverse, where the letters and numbers, especially in Liberty, In God We Trust, or the date 1942, appear doubled when examined under magnification. This doubling happened when the coin die struck the design twice slightly out of alignment, creating a ghostly shadow effect that collectors crave. If you find one of these doubled dies in good shape, another variety to look for is the repunched mint mark, or RPM. This happened when the small mint letter, like the D for Denver or S for San Francisco, was hand-punched more than once in slightly different positions. Some 1942D and 1942S pennies show clear doubling or overlapping in that tiny mint mark. These errors are subtle, but they are genuine mint anomalies, and the clearer they appear, the higher their price climbs. Depending on grade, some of these repunched mint mark varieties have sold for $500 to $200. There's also the mysterious 1942 transitional error, a legend among collectors. Some researchers believe that a few experimental coins were struck on planchets, blank discs, intended for 1943 steel cents, meaning they were made of steel instead of copper. While there's no officially confirmed 1942 steel cent known, rumors and unverified pieces have circulated in the hobby for decades. If one were ever authenticated, it would instantly become one of the most valuable coins in US history, possibly worth well over $100,000. That possibility alone has made collectors check every 1942 penny they find, just in case one slipped through during that historic transition. But beyond the technical aspects, the 1942 penny carries emotional weight. Imagine the hands it passed through. Soldiers, factory workers, mothers buying rations, children saving their allowances. Each one tells the story of America during wartime, when even a penny mattered. When you hold a 1942 penny, you're holding a moment from a time when the country was united, uncertain and resilient. That human connection adds a layer of meaning that no price tag can replace. Let's talk about color and condition, something many new collectors overlook. The grading scale for pennies uses three main color designations: red, RD, red-brown, RB, and brown, BN. A full red 1942 penny, meaning it still shines like it just left the mint, is extremely rare today. Most have darkened to brown with age. That's why in MS-67, red commands such an incredible premium. It's not just about condition, it's about color preservation. It's the visual proof that the coin has remained untouched for more than 80 years. Even among regular 1942 pennies, there are tiny die variations that fascinate serious collectors. You might find minor die cracks, cuds, or lamination flaws, imperfections caused by overused or damaged dies. These small quirks give each coin its personality. In the world of numismatics, no two pennies are exactly alike, and that's what makes the hunt so addictive. Every time you flip a coin under the light, you're stepping into a detective story where history, luck, and craftsmanship meet. So, what should you do if you find one? Start with a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe. Look at the date. Check for doubling. Examine the mint mark if there is one. Does it look doubled or slightly off-center? Then check the overall shine. If it still has that deep red-orange glow, keep it safe. Even if it's not a major error, a clean, uncirculated 1942 penny can easily sell for $10 to $50, and in top grades, thousands. And if you're serious about verifying what you have, send it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. They'll confirm the variety and assign a grade that determines its market value. The most thrilling part of this coin story is how it bridges two worlds, the copper past and the steel future. It marks the final breath of traditional bronze, before wartime necessity reshaped everything. That's why collectors chase it with such passion. A perfect 1942 penny isn't just a coin, it's a survivor, a witness to one of the most intense periods in human history. and a reminder that even something as small as a penny can carry immense meaning. So the next time you see a 1942 penny, don't dismiss it as old change. It might be a link to America's wartime resilience, or it might be the one in a million with a doubled die, or a repunched mint mark worth thousands. Either way, that coin in your hand isn't just copper, it's legacy. And if you're lucky, it could be a legacy that changes your fortune forever. The 1949 Lincoln penny might seem ordinary at first glance, a small copper coin that has passed through countless hands over the past 7 decades. But don't be fooled. In rare cases, this humble cent has stunned collectors, selling for as much as $9,000 at major coin auctions. Yes, a coin worth a single cent could be hiding a small fortune right in plain sight. And what makes it valuable isn't just its age. It's the precision of its strike, the color of its surface, and a few incredible minting mistakes that slipped through the US Mint's watchful eyes. The year was 1949. America was stepping into a new era after the chaos of World War II. The economy was booming, industry was thriving, and people were holding on to hope. Copper production had returned to normal after years of wartime rationing, and the US Mint was once again striking billions of coins for a country on the move. The 1949 penny belongs to that moment, a symbol of post-war optimism and the return to normal life. 3 mints struck the Lincoln cents that year: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia coins carry no mint mark, while the Denver pennies bear a small D beneath the date, and San Francisco's pieces are marked with an S. Together they produce more than 1.1 billion pennies. With numbers that high, you might think none of them could be rare. But what makes a 1949 penny special isn't how many were made, it's how few survived in truly perfect condition. Most pennies from that year circulated for decades, rubbed smooth in pockets and cash drawers, their luster long gone. But a handful were saved early. Bright red, freshly minted pieces with full detail that somehow avoided wear, scratches, or oxidation. These pristine survivors are the ones collectors fight over. A 1949 penny-graded MS-67 red has reached prices of $9,000, while high-grade examples from Denver and Philadelphia routinely sell for hundreds to thousands of dollars. It's not about rarity in number, it's about rarity in perfection. The magic of this coin lies in its design, the familiar wheat ears reverse that had symbolized American resilience since 1909. This was the end of an era. Just a few short years later, in 1959, the reverse design would be replaced by the Lincoln Memorial, ending a 50-year chapter in US coinage. Man, that makes every late 1940s wheat penny like the 1949 a piece of living history. The final stretch of the classic wheat ears look before it disappeared forever. But for many collectors, the real excitement comes from the minting errors. These are the accidents that make a common coin extraordinary. Look closely at the date, the word liberty, and the motto, "In God We Trust." On some 1949 pennies, especially from Denver, you'll find double die obverse errors, where the letters and numbers show faint doubling, like a ghost image. This happens when the die strikes the design, slightly off alignment during preparation. The doubling can be minor, just a whisper, or strong enough to see with the naked eye. And that difference can mean hundreds or even thousands of dollars in value. Then there's the repunched mint mark, a small but fascinating detail. In 1949, mint marks were still hand-punched into the dies. If the worker didn't strike it perfectly, they would try again. And sometimes the D or S was hit twice, creating overlapping letters. A clear, visible repunched S or D can raise the value dramatically, especially when the rest of the coin is in high grade. Another interesting variety is the die break or cud, where part of the die cracked and left a raised blob of metal on the coin. These flaws might look like defects, but they're beloved by collectors because they mark genuine mint errors. Each one is unique, no two look exactly the same, and some can command hundreds of dollars, depending on size and visibility. But what really separates the valuable 1949 pennies from the rest is color. Professional grading services classify copper coins by their toning: brown, BN, red-brown, RB, and full red, RD. Over time, most pennies darken from bright red to chocolate brown, but the ones that stay red are the true treasures. A brilliant MS-67 Red coin looks as if it was minted yesterday, glowing with that fiery, orange copper shine that collectors crave. These are the coins that sell for thousands, because they're not just old, they're visually stunning. The 1949 penny also holds deep symbolic value. It came from an America rebuilding itself, where the penny still mattered, when you could buy a stick of gum or a newspaper with a few of them. Each coin was a small piece of the nation's heartbeat, and holding one today is like holding a fragment of that simpler, hard-working era. If you want to check your 1949 penny for potential value, start with a good magnifier. Look closely at the date. Search for any doubling. If your coin has a mint mark, inspect it carefully for any trace of overlapping or shadowing. Check the edges and fields for cracks, die chips, or bulges. Then tilt it under bright light. Does it still shine with that original red color? Or has it turned brown? That shine could mean the difference between a 1-cent curiosity and a 4-figure collectible. Even circulated 1949 pennies can have charm. A lightly worn example might sell for $1 or $2, while extremely fine coins can bring in $5 to $20. But the jump happens fast. Once a coin reaches the uncirculated grades, especially if certified by PCGS or NGC, prices soar. Collectors pay for perfection, for rarity and condition, and for the satisfaction of owning a time capsule from post-war America. And remember, if you find a 1949 penny that looks too clean, too sharp, too perfect, don't spend it. Protect it. Put it in a holder, keep it away from moisture, and get it graded. You might be holding a coin that defied decades of circulation, preserved by luck and timing. The next time you sift through a jar of old change, or check the bottom of a drawer filled with pennies, pause when you see the date, 1949, because somewhere out there, among billions of ordinary coins, a few flawless survivors are waiting, glowing with history, mystery, and the promise that even a single cent can still make a collector's heart race. The 1956 Lincoln wheat penny may look like a simple copper coin, but hidden within its shiny, red surface and vintage charm lies a story that has captured the hearts of collectors for decades. While most 1956 pennies are worth only a few cents above face value, there are certain rare variations and pristine examples that have shocked collectors by selling for jaw-dropping prices, with one of the finest examples ever graded reaching over $20,000 at auction. The 1956 penny was minted in 2 locations, Philadelphia and Denver, during the post-war era when the United States economy was booming and millions of these coins were struck. Because of the high mintage numbers, you might think this coin is too common to be special. But the real magic of the 1956 penny isn't in how many were made, it's in how few have survived in perfect condition or with rare errors. This coin is made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, part of the classic Lincoln Wheat Cent series that ran from 1909 to 1958. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln's portrait, still crisp and timeless, while the back features 2 wheat stalks curving along the edges, symbolizing prosperity and strength. That design, known as the wheat reverse, makes these pennies a nostalgic favorite among collectors. Now here's where things get exciting. The 1956 penny comes in both regular, strikes, and a variety of rare errors that can make them incredibly valuable. Some of the most sought after are the doubled die errors, where parts of the coin's design appear to have been stamped twice. If you see doubling on the date, on the letters in Liberty, or even in God We Trust, you might be holding a treasure that collectors would pay hundreds, even thousands to own. Then there's the 1956 D penny, minted in Denver, which sometimes shows a repunched mint mark, RPM. A small but powerful detail where the D mint mark was struck more than once in slightly different positions. These RPM errors are exciting to collectors because they show a human touch, a moment when precision met imperfection at the mint. Depending on how bold and visible that repunch is, a 1956 D RPM penny can be worth anywhere from a few dollars to several hundred in high grades. But even without errors, condition changes everything. A 1956 penny found in circulation, with scratches, discoloration or wear, is worth around 2 to 5 cents. However, an uncirculated example with its original reddish copper shine, graded MS65 or higher, can easily reach $50 to $200, and when you move into the elite grades, coins with blazing luster, nearly flawless surfaces, and perfect detail, that's where the price skyrockets. The MS-67 Red 1956 Lincoln Wheat penny is so rare that collectors have paid over $20,000 for one at auction. What makes such a massive difference in price? It's all about how the coin was preserved. Most pennies from the 1950s circulated through countless hands, losing their original luster and sharpness. But the few that were carefully stored untouched and kept safe from oxidation have turned into miniature time capsules, glowing red reminders of 1950s America. Collectors are constantly hunting for those full red, uncirculated coins, because each one represents perfection, a glimpse of the coin exactly as it left, the mint almost 70 years ago. Combine that with a dramatic error, like a bold double die or repunched mint mark, and you've got the kind of coin that sparks bidding wars and headlines in the numismatic world. So if you come across a 1956 penny, don't just brush it aside as pocket change. Look closely, check the mint mark, examine the date, and see if that shine still glows red. Because what might look like an ordinary cent could actually be a piece of history worth hundreds, or even tens of thousands of dollars.